Listen to me for a moment, because what I'm about to say might challenge everything you believe about aging. If you are over 60, the first 5 minutes after you wake up can quietly shape the rest of your life. Not your diet, not your medication, not even your exercise routine, those first 5 minutes. Most people wake up and immediately step into worry, regret, or heaviness. Their mind rushes to problems. Their body stiffens before the day even begins. And without realizing it, they train their brain to believe that life is something to endure rather than experience. But here's the truth that rarely gets talked about. Your brain, even after 60, is still incredibly powerful, adaptive, and responsive. Every morning it asks one simple question: what kind of life are we living today? And the answer isn't given by big decisions. It's given in tiny emotional signals during the first few minutes after waking. The way you breathe, the way you speak to yourself, the way you step into the morning. These signals tell your nervous system whether the world is safe or threatening, whether today is about possibility or survival. I've seen people in their 70s and 80s transform their emotional health, their relationships, even their sense of purpose, simply by reclaiming those first moments of the day, not with complicated routines, but with intentional presence. Because longevity isn't only about how long you live, it's about how deeply you feel alive while you're living. And it starts with a decision most people overlook: what you do in the first 5 minutes of the morning. In the next part, I'm going to share the first habit that emotionally resilient people over 60 practice every single morning, often without even realizing how powerful it is. Let me tell you something that might sound simple, but it's profoundly life-changing. When most people wake up after 60, the first thing they feel is pressure in the chest, pressure in the joints, pressure in the mind. And before their feet even touch the floor, their thoughts begin racing. I didn't sleep well. My body hurts. Another long day. What they don't realize is that this moment becomes an emotional blueprint for the rest of the day. Your brain listens to those first thoughts like instructions. And here's the truth: your brain believes whatever story you tell it first. But emotionally resilient people do something different. They pause, just for a few seconds. Instead of jumping out of bed or grabbing their phone, they allow themselves to wake up consciously. They take one slow breath, then another, and in that small, quiet pause, something powerful happens. The nervous system begins to settle instead of panic. The body feels acknowledged instead of criticized. And the mind begins the day with curiosity rather than dread. This isn't about pretending everything feels perfect. It's about saying to yourself, gently and honestly, I'm still here. And this day matters. There is something deeply courageous about that moment, because after 60, you've seen loss, you've felt disappointment, you've carried responsibilities that younger people can't even imagine, and yet you wake up again, another sunrise, another chance to experience something meaningful. That awareness changes the way your brain processes the entire day. Instead of survival mode, your body shifts toward presence, gratitude, and emotional balance. And it all begins with a breath and a pause. In the next section, I'll share the second morning habit that can dramatically influence longevity. And surprisingly, it has nothing to do with exercise. Let's talk about something most people carry quietly after 60, the weight of their own inner voice. By this stage of life, many people have spent decades being strong for others. They've raised families, faced disappointments, buried loved ones, and carried responsibilities that demanded resilience. But somewhere along the way, a subtle habit forms. The habit of being harder on themselves than anyone else ever could be. When they wake up in the morning, their first thoughts sound like quiet criticism. I'm getting old. My body isn't what it used to be. I should have done more with my life. Those sentences may seem small, but the brain doesn't treat them as casual thoughts. It treats them as emotional instructions. And over time, those instructions shape how a person feels about their worth, their energy, even their future. But emotionally healthy people over 60 practice something radically different during those first minutes of the day. They offer themselves one gentle truth. not a dramatic affirmation, not forced positivity, just a simple, compassionate statement. Something like, I've come a long way, or my life still holds meaning, or even, today I will be kind to myself. Now, here's what makes this powerful. When you speak to yourself with compassion, your brain releases signals that reduce stress and increase emotional stability. Your body softens. Your breathing deepens. You stop fighting yourself. And when you stop fighting yourself, something extraordinary happens. You begin to live with more energy, more clarity, and more openness to joy. Longevity isn't just about adding years to your life. It's about removing the quiet emotional burdens that slowly drain your spirit. And sometimes that process begins with one honest, compassionate sentence spoken in the quiet of the morning. In the next section, I'm going to share the third habit, and it might surprise you because it involves something many people completely forget to do when they wake up. There is something that quietly happens to many people after 60. They begin to disconnect from their bodies, not intentionally, not consciously, but slowly. Every ache becomes a reminder of aging. Every stiff joint feels like proof that time is winning. And so the mind begins to treat the body like a problem that needs fixing instead of a partner that deserves care. But emotionally resilient people who carry strength and vitality well into their later years, do something beautifully different in the first minutes of the morning. They reconnect with their body before the world rushes in, not with intense exercise, not with complicated routines, just with simple awareness and gentle movement. Before checking messages, before thinking about responsibilities, they take a moment to feel their body waking up. They stretch their fingers slowly. They roll their shoulders. They take a deep breath and feel their lungs expand like they're welcoming the morning. And in that moment, something powerful shifts. Instead of thinking, my body is failing me, they begin to feel, my body is still carrying me. That shift is emotional. But it's also biological. Gentle movement in the morning stimulates circulation, wakes up the nervous system, and sends a message to the brain that says, we are alive. We are moving. We are still capable. And that message matters more than people realize, because the brain doesn't just respond to thoughts. It responds to physical signals from the body. When you move with care and awareness in the morning, your body releases energy instead of stiffness. Your mind becomes clearer. Your mood becomes steadier. You begin the day feeling connected rather than defeated, and that connection builds something extraordinary over time. Confidence. Not the loud kind, not the kind that demands attention, but the quiet confidence that whispers, I'm still here, and my life is still unfolding. In the next section, I'm going to share the fourth habit, and it may be the most emotionally powerful one yet, because it involves something the human heart desperately needs, especially later in life. There is a quiet truth about life after 60 that many people don't talk about enough. By this stage, you've seen both beauty and heartbreak. You've celebrated victories, and you've carried losses that younger generations may never fully understand. And because of those experiences, it can become easy to wake up with a sense of heaviness, not bitterness, not anger. Just a subtle emotional weight that whispers life has taken a lot out of me. But people who live with deep emotional vitality, even into their 70s, 80s, and beyond, practice something powerful every single morning. They begin the day with gratitude that feels honest, not the forced kind, not the kind that ignores pain or pretends everything is perfect. Real gratitude is much quieter than that. It sounds like this: I'm grateful for one more sunrise. I'm grateful my body carried me through another night. I'm grateful I still have time. You see, gratitude isn't about pretending life is easy. It's about recognizing that even in a complicated life, there are still moments worth noticing. And the brain responds to that awareness in remarkable ways. When you intentionally acknowledge something you're grateful for, your brain releases chemicals associated with calm, connection, and emotional resilience. Stress begins to loosen its grip. Your nervous system shifts out of survival mode. And suddenly, The day doesn't feel like something you have to push through. It begins to feel like something you're allowed to experience. For people over 60, this shift is incredibly powerful because gratitude reminds you of something many people forget as they age. Your story is not finished. There are still conversations waiting to happen, still laughter waiting to be shared, still quiet moments of meaning that can appear in the most ordinary places. And gratitude opens the door for those moments to enter your day. There is a quiet danger that often appears later in life. It doesn't arrive suddenly. It creeps in slowly, almost invisibly. It's the feeling that your most important chapters are already behind you. After retirement, after children grow up, after responsibilities change, many people wake up without the same sense of urgency they once had. The schedule loosens, the demands fade, and at first that freedom feels peaceful. But over time, something unexpected can happen. Without meaning or direction, the day can begin to feel empty instead of open. And the human brain was never designed to live without purpose. Research consistently shows that people who maintain a sense of daily meaning often experience stronger emotional health, sharper cognitive function, and even longer lifespans. But here's the beautiful part. Purpose after 60 doesn't need to be massive or dramatic. It can be incredibly small and deeply human. Emotionally resilient people start their morning by giving themselves one simple intention for the day. Not 10 goals, not overwhelming expectations. Just one meaningful focus. It might be, today I will call someone I care about. Today I will take a walk and notice the world around me. Today I will share kindness with someone who needs it. That single intention becomes a compass for the day. Suddenly, the morning feels less like drifting and more like quietly moving forward. Your brain begins to anticipate something meaningful. Your heart begins to feel useful again. And usefulness, real, heartfelt usefulness, is one of the most powerful emotional fuels a human being can experience. It reminds you that your presence still matters, your voice still matters, your choices still matter. Age does not erase your ability to make the world slightly warmer, slightly kinder, slightly wiser. Sometimes it actually strengthens that ability. And it begins with a simple question each morning: what small purpose will guide me today? There is something the modern world has quietly stolen from us: silence. From the moment most people wake up, noise rushes in. Phones light up with notifications. News headlines pull attention toward fear and urgency. Messages, emails, responsibilities, they all begin demanding energy before the mind has even fully awakened. And for many people over 60, this constant noise becomes emotionally exhausting. But those who age with remarkable clarity and peace practice a powerful morning habit. Before the world starts speaking to them, they sit in silence, just for a few minutes. No phone, no television, no rushing, just quiet. At first, silence can feel uncomfortable. The mind may wander. Thoughts may drift toward worries or memories. But something extraordinary begins to happen if you allow that silence to stay. Your breathing slows. Your heartbeat steadies. Your nervous system shifts from tension into calm awareness. And in that stillness, you begin to reconnect with something people often lose in busy lives: your inner voice. Not the voice of fear, not the voice of pressure, but the deeper voice that says, this moment is enough. You are allowed to be here. Life is still unfolding. Silence gives your brain the space it desperately needs to reset emotionally. Stress hormones drop. Mental clarity returns. Even creativity begins to awaken. And this matters more than people realize, because the quality of your thoughts throughout the day is often shaped by the emotional tone of your morning. If the day begins in chaos, the mind stays restless. But if the day begins with silence, the mind carries a sense of steady grounding into everything that follows. You begin to move through the world less reactively and more intentionally. And after 60, that kind of emotional steadiness becomes one of the most valuable forms of strength. There is a quiet emotional shift that can happen as people move deeper into their later years. Life becomes quieter. Children grow up and build their own lives. Careers end. Friends move away. Some loved ones are no longer here. The house that once felt full of voices and activity can suddenly feel still. And in that stillness, Something dangerous can slowly grow. Isolation, not always loneliness in the obvious sense. Sometimes it's simply the feeling that fewer people are expecting to hear from you, fewer people are checking in, fewer conversations happen naturally throughout the day. But here's what decades of research and human experience continue to show us. Strong human connection is one of the most powerful predictors of longevity and emotional health. More powerful than many diets, more powerful than many medications. Connection reminds the brain that you belong, and people who thrive after 60 understand something deeply important. Connection rarely happens by accident anymore. It often requires a small act of courage. So in the first minutes of the morning, they plant a simple seed of connection. They think of someone, a friend, a sibling, a grandchild, a neighbor, and they make a quiet promise to themselves, today, I will reach out. It might be a short message, a phone call, a warm conversation during a walk. But that simple intention transforms the emotional energy of the day. Instead of moving through the world alone, you move through it with shared humanity. And something beautiful happens in those moments. You remember that your presence still brings comfort, wisdom, laughter, and warmth to others. Connection doesn't just add years to life, it adds life to the years you're living. There's a dangerous lie that creeps in after 60, and it's whispered softly by both society and the mind. You're too old to change. You're too old to grow. But let me be perfectly clear. Growth does not have an expiration date. Not for your mind, not for your heart, not for your spirit. The people who thrive, who wake up with energy and purpose even in their later decades, feed their minds intentionally. The first minutes of the morning are prime real estate for this. Before distractions, before habits of comparison or complaint, emotionally resilient people choose one small mental nourishment. It could be reading a few lines of a book that sparks curiosity. It could be listening to music that lifts the soul. It could be journaling one sentence that clarifies a dream or feeling. Even 5 minutes of focused mental growth sends a message to the brain, I am still evolving. I am still capable, I am still alive. And here's the magic: that tiny act of learning, reflecting, or imagining expands far beyond the moment. It rewires the brain, improves emotional resilience, and strengthens cognitive health. Growth after 60 isn't about grand achievements. It's about tiny, intentional acts that remind your brain and heart that life still matters. When you start your day feeding curiosity, instead of dwelling on decline, you train your nervous system to anticipate possibility rather than loss, vitality instead of stagnation, engagement instead of withdrawal. And that's exactly what longevity looks like. Not just years added to life, but life added to the years you have left.